Hey, Michigan State fans, it's Jacob Katsunicki here, back for another episode of the Michigan State Spartans Insider Podcast here on SI. It is now Friday, October 10th, and that means we're going to get into some predictions here today. MSU going into its homecoming game against the UCLA Bruins. Again, a very interesting game. Go to SpartanNation.com for all the coverage of this game leading up to it. We take down bits and pieces of every aspect of this game heading into this one. So, again, Michigan State, 2-game losing streak, started to open up Big Ten play. You can't afford a third one. If they don't beat UCLA, I don't see them making a bowl game, to be quite honest with you. UCLA, they started 0-4. Were kind of like one of the jokes of the Power Four. They were definitely the worst team in the Big Ten, but then they suddenly beat Penn State out of nowhere. So you kind of make, that's going to make your ears perk up a bit about them, and you're certainly going to have to give them some respect for doing that because, again, Penn State's still a team. They've struggled against top 10 opponents, but generally they've beaten all the teams that they should beat until UCLA upset them of all people. So, as for predictions about the game, we'll kind of go through the game when each team has the ball and which team might have the advantage on either side. So first things first, when Michigan State has the ball, the offense needs to have a better game than it did against Nebraska because things were certainly not good enough. Part of that, it all starts with the offensive line, really. I still don't think Aiden Childs was that horrible in that game. I don't like the stat line is pretty tough to look at a little bit. 9 for 13, 85 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. That's never good. Certainly some of it is on him. He missed a couple of throws. But the offensive line did him no favors. Almost every time, it seemed like at least half the time, he was dropping back and there was someone, getting close to him, getting some pressure on him. So a lot of that's on the offensive tackle position. You had, again, no Stanton Ramil still for this one. So we'll see what they do at the tackle position. I would be a bit surprised if they rolled out the same 2 tackles as they did against Nebraska. It was Connor Moore at the left side and Ashton Lepo on the right side. I'd have to imagine, given how poorly it went against Nebraska, they would probably put in Rustin Young in at left tackle because he played a lot in that USC game and seemed to do just fine, and then move Connor Moore back over to right tackle, which is where he's played most of his snaps this season for Michigan State. That would be my guess. Jonathan Smith. No one's really going to give that away. Obviously, during the week of practice, not to help UCLA out, but I'd have to guess that would be the starters at that spot for Michigan State. But UCLA has their defensive line has struggled. They have 5 sacks in 5 games. 1 a game is not going to do you much favors as far as a pass rush goes. People have had valid complaints about the lack of pass rush from Michigan State, but they had 5 in that game against Nebraska. So that was a step in the right direction, but 5 all season for the Bruins. They weren't constantly getting pressure on Drew Aller, per se. Their leading sack guy, actually, is Anthony Jones, played for Michigan State last season and had 2 or 3 sacks for MSU. Transferred out to UCLA. He's one of 2 transfers for the Bruins. The other one, running back Jalen Berger, played last 2 seasons of the Mel Tucker era, was Michigan State's leading rusher in 2022. So, but defensive line for UCLA certainly struggled, especially stopping the run. They are dead last in the Big Ten at both a per game and per carry basis in terms of stopping the run. Over 200 rushing yards allowed per game by UCLA, and they're allowing about 5.3 yards per carry defensively. Certainly not great, but then you look at Nebraska, and Michigan State did not run the ball on Nebraska at all. Nebraska's near the bottom or not on the good side of those statistics either. So it's one of those things, they should be able to run the ball against UCLA, but they should have been able to run the ball against Nebraska too, and they weren't able to do that. It's probably because, again, the offensive line struggled. I'd have to go maybe back to see if maybe Nebraska was doing anything different, but I'd have to imagine as far as what Michigan State needs to do better, it's just in general, offensive line all around needs to play better in this game against UCLA. Going at the Pro Football Focus grades, it was their worst performance of the season, both run blocking and pass blocking. UCLA, when they have the ball, it's going to be a lot of Nico Iamaleava. That's what you'd expect. For any team, he'd be a solid starting quarterback to have. He was at Tennessee last year, had that very public transfer decision, to say the least. During the spring, pretty sudden, he was going to be welcomed back as the starting quarterback in Knoxville. He wasn't being pushed out. He decided to leave. Reports were that it was NIL related. He maintains that he's from Long Beach. He played Aiden Giles in high school, matched up against him once or twice, and no, he took them to the college football playoff as a starter last year. People have their opinions about how great of a quarterback he is, but I don't think you make a college football playoff if your quarterback is just some guy. Unless you have a really really good run game. Which really Tennessee, I don't think they had a super elite numbers as far as running the ball. It wasn't kind of like a 2021 Michigan with Cade McNamara type of thing. He can throw the ball. But the thing that's emerged with him in UCLA is he's ran the ball a lot more. His rushing yards per game has doubled from last year at Tennessee. He's their leading rusher by a good bit. He's at about 332 rushing yards and a bunch of touchdowns on the ground with their leading running back. They kind of split the wealth between three running backs or so. Berger, one of them. Their leading running back is Anthony Woods. But Imaliava, he's going to take off. He had 128 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game against Penn State on the ground. That'd be a really good game for a running back. Especially against a top 10 opponent, against one of the better defenses in college football, Penn State. Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator there was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State last year, and he's one of the most well-paid coordinators in the sport. He's not number 1, he's top 5. So it's impressive. It's impressive what he can do with the ball. But Michigan State, that's what the focus has to be. If you can contain Imaliava, I think they should be fine. Defensively, I think the defense was a lot better against Nebraska. 38 points doesn't really tell the story of that game for Michigan State's defense because, again, you have the block punt for a touchdown, nothing to do with the defense, nothing. So you can already take 7 off there. 31 points isn't great either, but then you look at the stats for the game, and Nebraska had way better field position than Michigan State in this ballgame. Yeah, the average starting field position for Nebraska was on its own 47-yard line. So it was just short field after short field after short field. So if special teams plays better, should be a better game for Michigan State's defense. And UCLA's offense, again, hasn't been great either for the whole season, though it is kind of a different story now since they put up 42 points against Penn State. Jerry Neuheisel, the interim offensive coordinator, he was able to do it while he admitted he wasn't pressing the button right to communicate to the quarterback, Imaliava, correctly, the whole time. So we'll see what their offense brings. That's kind of the main question. That's kind of the main piece of concern I'd have if I were Michigan State's coaching staff, is how well their offense played against Penn State. But overall, this is still a game Michigan State should win. I just don't like that type of performance that they had against Penn State. Good luck replicating that, especially when you're now on the road across the country. It's a 9 a.m. Pacific kickoff time, noon. First noon game in Spartan Stadium in 2 years. There wasn't a noon game at all last year. So that's a change of pace. Felt like there's been nothing but night games and 3:30 kicks. Now you finally have a noon kickoff, and it's going to be bright outside by the time this game is done. So that's a welcome change, if you ask me. If I had to put a score on it, I think Michigan State's going to win. I think they are just better. I just think UCLA was still 0-4 for a reason. They lost to New Mexico. They lost to UNLV, 2 group of 5 teams. Lost by 3 to Northwestern, but Penn State upset. It's just we'll see. We'll see, but I think Michigan State ultimately gets the win here because they really need to. They really, really need to. It's gonna be a long conversation to be had if they fall to 3-3 and 0-3 in Big Ten play. So, putting a score on it, I would say Michigan State. Let's call it 38, and UCLA offense is still playing well, so 38-27. That's what I'll say. In Michigan State 38, UCLA 27. But yeah, we'll see after the game how close I am. I was pretty close with the Nebraska prediction. That might be a very similar score to what I had in that Nebraska game. Hold on. I said 34-27. Oh, wait, that was the final score. I'm going to change that then. 38-27. That was the score of Nebraska MSU. So I'm going to say that I was influenced by seeing that score over and over this week. So then I'll go down a little less high scoring. We'll do 31. We'll do 31 to 21. Yeah, 31-21 Michigan State. Defense plays a better game against a pretty decent UCLA offense. I think the offense gets back on track a little bit. You see a nice day from Mekhi Frazier. I think you see Nick Marsh get the ball a lot more because he wants the ball more. And who are you to tell Nick Marsh no? Exactly, he's that type of player. But yeah, once again, we'll see after the game what the final score truly is. I'll be there for the game and providing you some coverage on the field from the press conferences. Yeah, and once again, I'm Jacob Katzeniga. Thank you for tuning in for this one. Keep checking in here and at SpartanNation.com for all of your Michigan State coverage. I'll see you guys around.